the Borsturk podcast. Cinco de Mayo 2025, round two playoff games. We're going to start with the one that just finished because it's especially fresh, and best believe Knicks Celtics is also fresh in the mind of one Max Klotz. Max, the Nuggets are up 1-0. I am on my way to Tulsa Wednesday morning to catch a must-win game two at Paycom.
Wow.
Delta Airlines is going to try to stop me. Good luck. I already have my alternate flights ready to go. I'm willing to go deep into the free miles. Sorry, Mom. And I just can't wait. But Nuggets, OKC game one. What's on your mind?
I mean, we have to start with the end of game, just kind of shenanigans and fouling up three. It's the age-old debate in the NBA. Usually, it seems like obviously the right move to make them shoot two free throws when you're up three so that they can't tie the game. We saw it rear its head in both games tonight. We'll talk about the Knicks one later, where they nearly lost the game on a poorly executed foul up three. OKC did the fouling. They probably did it too aggressively, where they were fouling before any time ran off the clock, and it just led to too many situations where they had to execute at the end of the game. Two missed free throws later, you get Aaron Gordon hunting his transition three, which that's been one of the coolest developments of his game this year is how much he hunts that shot now. Like in big moments, he did it in the regular season a few times, all series long against the Clippers. And in game one tonight, he's looking for that wing pull up three in transition. It's a really comfortable shot for him now. And he's become a really good 3-point shooter. And like, it's become it's not just Jokic and Murray now. It's like Jokic and then Murray and Gordon. It's more of like a pyramid as opposed to just their dynamic duo. And showed you, it's cliche, but that's a champion team. That's a championship nucleus and DNA right there. And they just hung around long enough to be able to teach the young whippersnappers a lesson from OKC. And I honestly, it felt like a game that OKC was in control the whole way. It didn't really enter my mind that the Nuggets really had a chance to win that game until like the last minute. It just felt like OKC was kind of stiff arming them the whole time. And then in a blink of an eye, Aaron Gordon was dribbling down the court with a chance to take the lead, and he did it. Just an all-time classic game one.
Nikola Jokic, 15 of 29, 42, 22, and 6, three stocks. He's a plus 10, so the Nuggets were -8 in the 6 minutes he didn't play in this game, and Denver was able to survive that. It's so absurd that we're at a point with Jokic where, like going into this game, I think I said to a friend, yeah, Jokic will probably get 40, 20, and 9, and it just won't be enough. He does it, and he got more and more efficient as the night went on. The jab, like face up, middle of the 3-point line three towards the end felt like it was the shot that got them over that hump that they had been unable to climb for so long in this game. Like you said, it was just jab, 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 but it just felt like that hump rule, as my friend Justin refers to it, that like when a team is just up 7 to 9 or 11, 13, it ballooned up to 15 at times tonight. And I
Yep.
agree with you. I didn't think Denver had a real path to victory until the very end when Jokic hit that three at the top of the arc. And
Same.
suddenly pressure was on this young OKC team to create efficient looks. Incredible minutes from Christian Brown, just like grown man offensive rebounds. He's for the moment. He loves it. You can tell. He's not an elite defender, but he's picking up anyone he's asked to and plays so damn hard. Peyton Watson was -22 tonight, but like just the fact that he did a couple things, like a block, a rebound. They put him on Shea very briefly. It didn't really work, but like he was able to play 14 minutes and it wasn't a complete disaster. I don't care about the -22. I watched it. And when it comes to Aaron Gordon, I think a lot about how this team had to let KCP go because they didn't want to go deeper into the tax, and they lose Bruce Brown to free agency. And I feel like Aaron Gordon has grown into some of the traits that made those two guys such important role players. Like he's extended his range to three, the way that KCP's catch and shoot stuff was so important for them. He's more versatile in the short role on offense. He's more switchable, the way that Bruce Brown could guard like 1 through 3 for them. And that was really important. All of those sort of micro skills that made them more dangerous around the edges when you could get the ball out of Jokic's hands, out of the Murray Jokic 2-man game. Aaron Gordon has filled all those holes for them, and he's just an incredible fit. Like you said, it feels more like a triangle now. Um, I still think the Thunder are going to figure this out.
Mhm.
We're so far from panic mode for OKC, goes without saying, but what a crazy effort. And it feels like Adelman has this job now. It feels like
Yeah.
tonight, maybe in the Clippers series that had already happened, but it feels like tonight was the night he went from interim coach to Nuggets coach of the future, because they're just rallying around him. The offense is flowing. They're finding new and interesting ways to create out of the Jokic dribble handoff game. And the role players look more confident than ever.
Yeah, and Gordon's development as a three-point shooter, as you said, it's also opening the door to be able to play Russ more tenably because I mean earlier in the season when teams, even though Gordon was hitting shots, weren't really respecting him, a lot of Nuggets outlets were talking about how like the Russ resurgence is great, but like are you really going to be able to play him and Gordon at the same time when teams aren't guarding either of them from the 3-point line? And now that Gordon is such a respected threat out there, it's actually opening things up where Russ, I mean, Michael Porter Jr. did not have it going at all tonight. He was 1 of 8, 2 points, and Russ was in there and shot over 50%, 18 points, played 30 minutes. He's become like their plug and play guy. And it's like, does Michael Porter have it tonight? If not, Russ, like, go do your thing. And it does feel like Adelman's done a really good job of kind of playing that push pull between MPJ and Russ. It's also been fun to see more and more animated Jokic moments on the sideline as he's like grabbing the clipboard and like drawing plays up and telling guys where to go. But yeah, those last few minutes for OKC, it was. I agree. I think they're going to figure it out. Like they still showed an ability to turn the Nuggets over a lot. They had forced 18 turnovers on the Nuggets tonight. Nuggets only had 18 assists and 18 turnovers, so like a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio as a team. You can't ask for much more than that defensively from OKC. The two big things that reared their heads were kind of the big questions around OKC going into last year's playoffs of rebounding, where they got out rebounded by nearly 20 by OKC, by Denver, sorry. You mentioned Christian Brown flying in for rebounds. He had 13 boards. Jokic had 22, Gordon 14. They were just dominating the glass. It felt like OKC, part of it was Chet's foul trouble. They couldn't do their double bigs as much as they wanted to. It felt like in that second half, it was always just one of their bigs on the floor and not both. And to really counter Jokic, they're going to need to have that double big look out there as much as they can and kind of try to replicate like the Minnesota recipe from last year. And it just felt like in the second half, it was a lot of Jokic going against either just Chet or just Hartenstein, and he was very comfortable in those situations. So the foul trouble is going to be big. The rebounding is huge. They forced 9 more turnovers, but 20 more rebounds. That's kind of wiping away that possession advantage that you're getting. So I still have faith in them with that, but the rebounding thing and then the who's going to create offense besides SGA fear, which I didn't buy into so much coming into the playoffs. I thought Jalen Williams and Chet and the rest of this team had proven themselves more than enough in the regular season. But once again, down the stretch late, you have kind of a wild Jalen Williams take that misses. You have Chet missing 2 big free throws, and the offense just kind of dried up in the last minute outside of one SGA dunk where sort of the Red Seas parted in the sort of foul game. And that's going to be a huge thing. Like Jalen Williams, we've said it a lot of times. A lot of people have said it. He's the biggest swing factor in these playoffs. Like if he's a great all-star level player, they're probably going to win the championship. If he shoots 5 for 20, like he did tonight, they might not make it out of this series. I still think they will. I'd probably, I picked them in 5 coming into tonight. Now, probably budget the Nuggets another game after winning that one. I'll say, okay, see you in 6. But they're going to need to keep up the turnovers while keeping Chet out of foul trouble so they can use that 2 big lineup, try to make Jokic sweat a little bit more. And then, yeah, their offense just has to sort of be a little bit more situationally successful.
Russell Westbrook. Oh my God, Russ. You mentioned the Chet missed free throws. Chet misses the first. And then he misses the second, and the Nuggets look genuinely shocked that he missed the second one. The ball hits the ground. I think Christian Brown was like surprised that the ball hits the ground and almost hits him in the face. He grabs it, shoots it to Russ, and suddenly Russ is the guy with the ball, and they're down one, and he's driving in transition. And you're like, oh my God, it's a Russ disaster all over again. He's had another surprisingly efficient and effective game. And now it's all going to go wrong in the most important play of the night. And what do you know? Russ drives middle and just makes the perfect basketball decision to get it to Gordon. I was a little bit upset when the ball left Gordon's hands that he was taking a 3-up-1 with a lot
Yeah.
of space to dribble into, but we were running out of clock, and I understand it. He's confident in that shot. Obviously, he's going to sleep well with the result. But what a play from Russ to push! Just the fearlessness in the most important moment tonight was so huge from him. And then before we say more, the Thunder have a couple seconds to inbound the ball. They get it to J Dub, and I think he releases the ball with like 2.5 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
And this is a pet peeve of mine that I feel like is just happening way too often in really important buzzer beating situations. Like guys are releasing the ball a couple seconds early, and J Dub had a chance to take that, I don't know, 2% shot to like a maybe like a 10-15% look if he could just like get to half court. He
Yeah.
had space and he had time, and instead he just heaved it super early, and that was that.
Yeah, and a couple other things. Yeah, the end of clock things. It was also weird. Like Cat had one in the Knicks game where he did the opposite, where he like went into his 2 steps for his layup attempt with the clock expiring, and it was like, did you really think you were gonna get through both of those steps and get that shot off before the clock is? Maybe it's way harder. It might be way harder than it looks to time that out. I don't know, but I agree. When he shot it, I was like, oh, he looked like he could have taken 1 or 2 more dribbles on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
MPJ's just lacked focus in, sometimes shocking gaffes from him. I know you mentioned it earlier in the game. I think it was the first half when he just dribbled into a backcourt violation.
Yeah.
He very clearly didn't have to. And the coach in you is like, maybe that was smart. He wanted the dead ball turnover instead of, a live ball turnover and give OKC a transition opportunity, but it didn't feel like that.
No.
MPJ was 1 for 8. They're going to respect him as a shooter, but it's just every other part of his game right now is just not showing up. And Russ has been the better option. And I can't believe we're there because in 2023, MPJ was a real part of that run. Maybe having more options in 2023, kind of really settling in as like the fifth most important guy on the floor for them, was better suited to just who he is as a player. And I think now sometimes he enters these playoff games thinking like he's got to be one of their dudes. And it's really just like make your threes and be in the right spots defensively. And so far he hasn't done either of those things.
Yeah. A couple of the things that I would at least take some solace in if I was an OKC fan. Number one, I thought Shea really seemed like he could get anywhere he wanted on the court
Yeah.
tonight, and he missed a lot of looks. Like he was 12 for 26, but I feel like Denver's going to really struggle guarding him in this series, despite that shooting night from him tonight. And he moved the ball well, 8 assists as well, nearly a 33-10, and he had 33-10 and 8, so nearly a 30-point triple double for him. I just think he's going to really get off in this series. And then conversely, on the other side, I think they're going to give Jamal Murray a lot of trouble. But they just are a tailor-made defense personnel wise. They have so many guys that can just make life
Yeah.
hell for Jamal Murray. Like between Lou Dort, Caruso was incredible tonight. He had hit 5 threes. It does really sting to squander the Caruso hot shooting game in the way that they did, but 5 of 9 from three, 6 assists, 5 steals. Close. I mean, I guess a 3-by-5 game, but he was all over the court tonight and like is just a
Yeah.
proven playoff dog for them. So they've got a lot of options. They're gonna have to figure out like I mean they played so many guys tonight. They can't play this many. I think like you're seeing most of the teams in the second round already, at least in the games tonight, are just kind of trusting 7 guys. I think they can do a little bit more than that because they're so deep, but it is a little bit of a game with how many guys that they have of trying to find the right combination of 7 or 8 on any given night. And yeah, they're going to need to shoot better. Isaiah Joe went 0 for 4 from three. They're going to need more out of him. They're going to need more, obviously, from Jalen Williams and some of the other supporting guys. But I still think they looked comfortable tonight, like just in terms of getting to their spots. Some of the shot results didn't go their way. But the key battle to look at for the rest of the series is going to be the Thunder turning the Nuggets over and how much extra offense they get from that versus the Nuggets kind of pounding the glass and how much extra offense they get from that. And whoever wins that battle or can kind of neutralize the other is probably going to win the series.
Caruso, so confident sniping from the corners too tonight. Kaysen, Lou Dort, even Caruso to an extent, because they're going to have to like hope Caruso misses some threes in this series. Like these are the guys that Denver is going to put a lot of pressure on to make shots. And Kaysen was really good defensively. He brought his typical frenetic energy and is obviously a big part of the Jamal Murray project that will, play out throughout this series. But Kaysen was 1 for 4 tonight, and Kaysen, for all of his talents, is still the guy that Denver wants putting the ball on the deck because it's a pick your poison type of offense with OKC. OKC puts 10 guys on the floor. Jalen Williams only played a couple minutes, but still, it's wild that they're even trying 10 guys in a game that was close throughout.
Yeah.
And, they play, I think, 7 guys, 20 minutes or more. Denver does that with 6 guys. Julian Strawther touched the floor for a couple minutes, and it just was very clear he doesn't belong. I think OKC is going to be able to find the answers, but to your point, they're going to have to make some choices at some point. Like you've got to give guys a chance to get into a rhythm, and it's really hard to get the best of Aaron Wiggins when he's playing, 13 minutes. He's kind of in and out of the game.
Right. Yeah. One last statistical nugget on this game. Nikola Jokic shot 29 shots in this game, which is a lot for him. It's the fourth, I looked it up, it's the fourth most he's ever taken in a playoff game, or fifth most. He's taken 33 times and 31 once. And most of those were kind of early in his career, except for two of those games against Phoenix a couple of years ago where they just had no one to guard him and he was going for like 50. He shot 30 a couple times in that series. But clearly, I think OKC is going to try to make him score as much as possible and take away the kind of passing outlets. He had 6 assists tonight, so that's going to be sort of
that's nothing. That's an embarrassing total for him. I can't believe how easily he moves Hartenstein. Like, of course, a Jokic back down on Holmgren is going to be effective 100% of the time, and you're probably going to need some help for Chet. He just doesn't have the body mass. But like Hartenstein, one of the stronger dudes in the league, each bump from Jokic is like another 3 feet. And he's just inching his way to the rim. And then he has the fluffiest touch in the league from just a couple feet outside the restricted area. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, Hardenstein's not going to be able to stop him one-on-one. You just need him to kind of hold him up long enough that like Chet can come over and help and bother and contest. But even when he was with the Knicks, like Hardenstein's a wonderful, phenomenal defender, but a lot of his value comes from kind of help more than sort of one-on-one post defense. Like against Embiid and Jokic, when he was on the Knicks, Mitch was often the better option because he just had a little bit more sort of natural strength to him and athleticism. But yeah, it's insane how basically anyone except Zubac, I guess maybe Zach Edey, maybe like Brook Lopez, and honestly Joel Embiid when he plays is probably the best one-on-one Jokic post defender in the league.
Give Klingon some time.
Kling Kong.
Yeah, I think that no matter how well Jokic plays, game 1 will be a distant memory by the end of this thing. But I was surprised by how little I noticed Denver's spacing issues that have plagued them at various points throughout the year. It's still a huge win for OKC when Russ settles for a catch and shoot 3, but Russ off the catch was making better decisions tonight. And, Russ getting ahead of steam because you left him 10 feet away at the arc is still not as bad for Denver's offense as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think my last thought on this series, if the Nuggets do pull it off and win, I think I will be more impressed by Jokic making the conference finals this year than I even was by their championship run. Because I think certainly this OKC team, and you could argue the Clippers team they beat in the first round, are probably better than any team that they played in their run to the championship a couple years ago, which was Minnesota, that Phoenix team, and the Lakers, and then that Heat team. Like I would take OKC over all those teams for sure, and I would honestly the Clippers would have a good chance of beating all those teams if you give a healthy Kawhi. So
Yeah.
would be an absolute sort of next crowning achievement for Jokic if they do manage to pull this off. But I just think over the course of the series, OKC has too many bodies. They're too athletic. There's probably a bit of a rust factor. They haven't played in like 10 days or something like that. Their first round series was extremely like easy, like a walkover. Saw a
Yeah.
similar thing happen with Cleveland against Indiana where they just didn't quite seem ready for the upped level of play and aggression. So curious to see how they look in game two. I think they'll probably blow them out in game two, but we'll see. And yeah, I'm still in shock, honestly, from how that game ended.
Yeah. What Jokic did last year against the Wolves, even in a series loss, was crazy. But this would be another level. And before we move on to the Knicks series, it just got me. I've just been thinking about how much of a loser your team is if they're prioritizing a top pick in the draft, even a draft that has a Cooper Flag or an AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson. These are the guys that are big names in 2026. Like, look at the best players in the playoffs so far this year. You've got Jokic picked 41, Giannis, I think 14, Kawhi 14 or 15, Shea 11, Halliburton 12, Brunson in the 20s, J Dub 11 or 12.
Brunson was 30s.
Brunson was 30s. Obviously, Draymond, we don't need to go into Warriors, but Şengün 14. The smart organizations are finding ways to stay competitive and still tack on not just important players, but elite players. Knicks in Boston, game one, a fourth quarter I'll never forget. I was FaceTiming my friend Hope in the fourth quarter. So I put the game on mute for a little bit. And I don't know if I'm remembering this scene in The Incredibles right, but I felt like Frozone when he's like, his wife is talking to him and he's watching like the world end outside his like penthouse window. And I'm like, wait, is there like a giant robot that's about to like enter our living room or something? That's how I felt watching New York's fourth quarter barrage tonight in a game that felt so 100% over. Like, I was pretty certain the Thunder were going to win, but I was 1,000,000% past game one in Boston when they
Yeah.
were up 16 at half and they weren't even making shots. Max, just take us to the Garden. What's going through your mind right now?
I was in a similar spot. I was melting into a puddle of depression in at halftime. I was like, couldn't even get words out. Like I was on the couch watching with my roommate. He was trying to cheer me up, and I was like, it's over. Like they're gonna win. Like this team doesn't have it. Yada yada. And it was same thought process. Down 16 and they're not making threes. Like what the hell are we supposed to do? And then it gets worse when the third quarter starts. Boston gets out even more. I forget how much they got up by. It was over 20. And then I'm just sitting there. I'm like angrily typing into my phone, like, fire everyone, etc. Knicks chat is popping off. It's just malaise, depression, anger, all these
Yeah.
things. And then the
I sent you a Matt Ishbia gif because I was like,
yeah,
Leon
yeah,
Rose is obviously the GM, not the owner, but Dolan doesn't really show his face anymore when it comes to the Knicks. So I was like, are you guys, you're not going to be, I was just messing with you. But yeah,
yeah, yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
go on.
And then the threes kind of start trickling in. There's like an OG three, there's a Brunson three. Celtics keep dribbling down and just taking the first three available to them and missing it. And it ticks down. Suddenly it's in the single digits, and I'm starting to get sucked back in. I'm like, don't you do this to me. Don't you fucking bring me back into this game after melting me into a puddle in at halftime and make me believe you actually have a chance to win it. Like I've seen this movie too many times before. And I honestly like it was like surreal. It was just the Celtics would come down, they'd miss a three, and then the Knicks would go down and find a way to just like cram the ball into the basket. And it was a an endearingly 2024 Knicks-esque performance of just
Totally.
like grit, rebounds, toughness, and you have to start with the wings just absolutely came to
Yeah.
play defensively. Hart, OG, Bridges. I've somewhat maligned the fit of the three of them together offensively over the course of the season. But in this particular matchup, especially, which is what they got McHale for, to be able to switch these actions and defend these guys at a high level with OG and McHale and Hart, like three high level perimeter defenders. And McHale reached a level defensively tonight that I have not seen him reach all season, and maybe have not seen him reach since he was in Phoenix. Not that I've been religiously watching every McHale game since then, but his deflections in the fourth quarter leading to run aheads for OG and other guys on the Knicks, ripping the ball away from Jalen on the last play of overtime. Um,
Yeah, but
routinely,
let's go back for a second
yes,
because the run that you mentioned, where it really felt like the door was shut, there were 7.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And Karl Anthony Towns is having the most Karl Anthony Towns stretch that I can remember in his Knicks career so far.
yeah,
He misses a driving layup. He offensive foul the next possession. Derek White hits a 26 footer. Um,
hmm
Towns misses another layup. And with 6 minutes and 24 seconds, Tatum dumps it off to Horford for a dunk, and it's 72-52.
yeah.
And we are halfway through the third quarter. And if there was any chance of the Knicks coming back to life, it felt like that was over. Next, Josh Hart hits a three. They're down 17. Derek White hits a 27 footer. You're like, oh, fuck. All right, it's really over.
Yeah.
Anunoby three, Anunoby three, Mitch free throw. And then still, when they cut it to 11, Tatum hits another pull up three
Yeah.
to push it back to 14. And that's when I was like, surely the Knicks aren't going to be able to run with these dudes. And then
Cap.
arrived the captain.
Cap.
And yeah, and simply put, Jalen Brunson went unconscious. I'd love to know what it felt like to be him in that moment
Yeah.
because everything that left his hands was fucking angelic.
I've certainly never rooted for a player who I could say this about. And there's very few players in the NBA who you can say it about that, or in sports, that when you need them to show up and play to the highest of their abilities, it's like a guarantee that they're going to do it. There are very few players in the NBA who consistently are great when needed to be great. And he is one of those players. I'm not saying he's like a top five player in the NBA, but he might be one of the five players who I trust the most to play to the best of his abilities when his best is needed. And that's something that Tibbs
Yeah.
says all the time. It's like he's at his best when his best is needed. And that just is like Jalen Brunson in a sentence.
Yeah. And
He's instilled so much trust in his ability to be clutch down the stretch. And like, yeah, the offense is very basic down the stretch of these games. It's just Brunson go to work and everyone else
wah,
try to get the
wah.
offensive rebound. But just his and he had Drew Holiday just like hounding him around every screen, and he was and Hart was like screening and rescreening, trying to get Horford switched on to Brunson. Brunson was pretty comfortable in that matchup, and then as overtime went on, it seemed like the Celtics kind of started sending more and more guys at him, and then that led to OG kickouts. McHale hit a huge three in I think the 50th of the 51 minutes that he played tonight.
Fuck them
And
pigs.
fuck them picks, baby. Fuck them picks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mikhail became a Nick tonight also just with his defense. Like it was absolutely outstanding performance from
Yeah.
him, even though the box score shows 3 for 13.
Obviously, there are no extra points for ethical hoops, but I really do mean it when I say Jalen Brunson was doing some egregious stuff in the Detroit series.
He was.
And
Game two.
he's not the only one. He's not the only guy who takes shit for it, you know? I mean, Shea gets a lot of shit, Luka gets a lot of shit, Harden's always gotten a lot of shit. we have lower expectations for Harden these days. Like Game 7, Harden was no surprise to anyone who's watched him throughout his career. And it was a really disappointing brief playoffs for Luka. There was a spotlight on Brunson's dark arts in the last few weeks. And I felt like today was particularly ethical on his part.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these were just insanely tough pull up, like stepping into some really like big boy jumpers. And like you
Mhm.
said, there's a little bit of a Derek Jeter element to this dude. When you really need him, he seems to be the most locked in. And he's one of these superstars at this point where if he's not really feeling it in quarter one, quarter two, I fully expect him, like Steph did in Game 7 against Houston, to just find a way,
Yep.
and to hit that 1 3 or that one floater, that one mid range step back that gives him a better sense, a spatial awareness to like, and the confidence to attack and then involve his teammates. I mean, it was a Brunson masterpiece, and also just an all time heater. You know, like
Yeah.
this. I haven't seen many guys go that nuclear in like a few minutes span this playoffs.
Yeah, and then the Knicks' other leading scorer, who Brunson had 29, other guy with 29 was OG, hit 6 threes. It felt like everyone was just like a massive shot when they really needed it. And also ended up with like a fast break dunk off of Mikhail Steele towards the end. It was like one of the first shots towards icing it where it wasn't just like a 2 point lead. And his defense, just coming back to it, him, McHale, and Hart throughout the game, just switching between all the different guys, holding up against like no matter who they were guarding. Brown had a really bad shooting night. Jaylen Brown, I think he was 1 of 10. It was either 1 of 10 on threes or 1 of 10. Yeah, 1 of 10 on threes from Jaylen Brown, and a lot of those were really contested looks. Like yes, the Celtics shot poorly from three, set a record for the most missed threes. I don't know if it's in a playoff game or just in a game with 45. But the Knicks were also doing things to make their 3 point looks difficult with how they were switching, taking away driving lanes. A lot of those threes were just like dribbling up the court into a three, not the kind of classic Celtics like drive, rotation, open three. A lot of them were tough step backs off the dribble or coming off of like a lack of penetration. So yes, I expect the Celtics to shoot much better from three going forward. Like they took 23 more threes than the Knicks and made fewer threes than the Knicks. I don't expect that to continue all series, but it wasn't just a shooting variance
Yeah.
night, I'll say.
And the Knicks defense also really locked in the second half. I actually thought Charles Chuck made a pretty good point at halftime, just how easily the Knicks were giving the town switch onto Tatum and some of like
Mhm.
the most dangerous Celtics hunters. And in the second half, it just felt like Tatum got way fewer looks against guys that weren't OG or McCall. I wish I had the synergy stats on that, but that's just what it felt like.
Mhm.
And this was another elite team, probably, you know, depending first or second best team in the league, depending on who you ask. And just like OKC, they really didn't handle those last few seconds well. This was much different. I mean, J-Dub was in a really high pressure, a few seconds left. It's always hard to look at the clock and shoot a half court shot. But the Celtics spend about 11 seconds dribbling in the last possession.
Uh-huh.
And I think the ball ends up with Jaylen Brown at the wing. He thinks about dribbling with his left. We all know that's not usually a great idea for him. And it was just a terrible use of the last shot clock for Boston. I couldn't believe it. I fully expected this thing to go to a second OT.
Cat almost sent it there because he did that. Tibbs was
Yeah.
screaming from the sideline for them to foul so
Yeah.
that they wouldn't be able to get up a three. No one like either heard him or felt like they were in a position to do it. Cat heard him and was like, "This is my
Yeah.
moment."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, "I'm
And
gonna
by
do
the
the
way,
smart play," and then
Cat is he's the most compulsive lunger I've ever seen. I mean, you'll get them down to like 4 seconds on the shot clock, and he'll just for some reason like jump at a shooter.
yeah.
Um, and it's so unnecessary. And it's obviously frustrating that you're paying that guy 53 million or whatever it is. It's at least
Mhm.
encouraging that when Towns isn't making shots, he's still rebounding and he still really, really cares.
Yeah, and I thought in the first half, he did a really good job of punishing switches. One thing, he only took 1 3 in this game, which was like a contested late shot clock take over Al Horford that airballed, I think. Um, the Celtics did a really good. I mean, their game plan is like what all the smart teams do against the Knicks, which is they take a wing, put him on Towns so that they can't run the pick and pop game with Brunson and Towns. So they put Tatum on Towns, and that just totally takes away Towns' 3-point game to this point. He only took 1 3. They're going to need him to take a lot more than that going forward in the series to sort of fully unlock his offensive game. Detroit did the same thing, putting Tobias Harris on him, which kind of took away his pick and pop game in that way because the center just kind of like sags off of Josh Hart and just kind of clogs things up. But regardless, I mean, Cat was basically out there doing like his Mitchell Robinson impression offensively, or like Isaiah Hartenstein, just like trying to grab offensive
Yeah.
rebounds, trying to kind of keep the ball moving and make hustle plays. And yeah, Cat, it's always been a misnomer that he's soft. He's not soft. He plays hard, and he does like and like play through physicality decently well. He just makes a ton of mental errors, and often they're errors of being like overexcited, what coaches would call errors of like commission rather than errors of
Yeah.
omission. But he still does make a lot of them. And he was in the Knicks starting five. I thought the entire Knicks starting five played brilliantly, other than him tonight. And I do think we'll probably get a game or two in this series where he's really got the post game going. Maybe he gets loose for a few threes and he has a really big offensive night, and the Knicks will need to capitalize on that. But if they can keep Bridges, OG, and Hart playing at this level, which is a tall task because they all played over 45 minutes tonight, and the ground that you have to cover defensively against the Celtics team is no joke. But if they can get that, they can at least stay competitive, which is not something I expected coming into the series.
I liked your 21 Mitch minutes. I really did. He was 3 for 10 from the free throw line. He needs to get to that Steven Adams, like 5 or 6 out of 10, and then
Yeah.
he's more than playable. The hustle is always there. He's way more disruptive as a rim protector than Cat could dream of being. And so, this game was a little bit different because Porzingis went out midway through with an illness, and obviously,
Yeah.
like, got to expect Porzingis is going to be back, and he's a matchup problem for you guys, like he is for every team.
Yeah.
But I like the Mitch minutes. I wonder if we're going to see a little bit more too big action from Tibbs as you settle into this series. I definitely think it's worth a look. I said to you early in this game that I like the idea of kind of mad scientist just going super small, playing Josh Hart at the 5 with 4 shooters.
Mhm.
Because I really believe in the importance of your switchability on offense. That's a term I've coined. Just like, can the ball not find someone who won't be able to, triple threat, attack, pass, shoot, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the idea with the
And
starting lineup. The problem
yeah,
is it's just
yeah.
yeah,
But there were just some moments today where I felt like Cat's decision making on defense wasn't worth what you were getting on offense, which obviously it's been a good trade-off with Cat for most of the year, but these games are a little bit different. And there are definitely moments where I think the Knicks are more dangerous with Cat off the floor, as painful as that is to admit. I
yeah,
will. You're not going to get many, Tatum 7 for 23 games in this series. Obviously, we've seen Tatum struggle with efficiency in the playoffs before, but like, the Celtics shot 35% tonight. Then that's a must-win opportunity for the Knicks.
yeah,
Derek White was 6 for 18, but every time he shoots a three, I think it's going in. And, even 5 for 16 from three, 31%, I guess that's like 0.93 points per shot. In a series like this where people are struggling to make buckets, like those are still worth taking for Derek White. And he's going to end up shooting closer to 40% as the series progresses.
yeah. Some quick things from the Knicks perspective before I just sort of share my thoughts on Boston. If you're a Knicks fan, I think you can take solace in that. I mean, Cat is debatable, but I'd say 7 guys, if you include Cat, 7 guys looked ready for the moment today. And I don't know if Cat necessarily did, but he's going to be playing. They had a 7-man rotation that looked ready for the moment with Mitch and Deuce McBride off the bench. One of the sort of sneaky things that was really holding them back in the Pistons series is McBride had a really horrible series.
Yeah.
Like he could not buy a shot, and that was affecting his defense and his decision making offensively, where you just like weren't noticing him on the court. And usually he's a guy where like his makes are loud and his
Yeah.
defense is loud. Like you feel him when he's out there.
He's
I
your
thought,
pitcher.
yeah, and I thought he had a strong game tonight. He was holding up well on switches defensively, and he made 3 out of 6 threes. Like that's going to be big going forward in terms of their versatility and getting blows for Hart, OG, and Bridges when they can, and Brunson. Because honestly, I don't know if you can. I don't think you can play campaign in this series. He's too easy to pick on. Maybe we see some DeLon Wright. He was someone who the Knicks acquired at the deadline, and I thought gave them some pretty good minutes down the stretch of the regular season and can at least like is a solid defender who can make an open three. Like I would give him a shot before I would give Campaign another shot in this series, but it's probably just going to be the starting five with Mitch and Deuce, and then like maybe a couple minutes of someone else if desperation calls. But so you can take pride in McBride and Mitch looking ready for the moment. Even if Mitch went 3 of 10 from the foul line, he's going to need to figure that out. But still, somehow was a team high plus 13 on the night, despite the sort of hack a Mitch being deployed so early and often against him. That was big. You can also be happy that Brunson looked really comfortable operating against basically anyone on the Celtics other than Drew Holiday. Like he was trying to get Drew Holiday switched off of him, but when he got switched onto Horford, he looked really comfortable. Against White, he looked comfortable. Against Brown, he looked comfortable. So that's big. And then, yeah, then the defense from the wings. And those are the key things. They're going to need to clean up the rebounds. The Celtics out rebounded them by a significant margin in this game, which being able to steal a game like that where you get out rebounded is big. A lot of those rebounds came from how many threes the Celtics missed because the rebounds were just kind of bouncing back out to the perimeter. But going to need to clean that up in games going forward for the Knicks. From the Celtics side, obviously you're going to expect to shoot better. You hope having Porzingis for more of the game will give more issues because he can just punish switches in a way that Horford can't at this stage in his career. So offensively gives them a much different look, and then defensively like a much bigger presence at the rim as well. So it was an illness. It wasn't like an injury. So I expect he'll be back and ready to go for the next game. And then, yeah, just the shooting, the Porzingis, and then if they can keep out rebounding the Knicks in this manner, it's going to be really difficult for the Knicks to win, losing the battle from the 3-point line and on the glass. But if the Knicks can kind of flip that rebounding thing, really kind of recapture more of that 2024 DNA with the added shot making talent that this team has, then there is kind of a pathway to them really making this a long series and not just stealing a game one.
Drew Holiday was kind of the Christian Brown of this game. I mean,
Fabulous.
just some really beautiful, like, I want this offensive rebound more than you do. This is the same competitive Drew Holiday that did it in Milwaukee, that did it in Japan as the second best player on that World Cup gold team when KD went nuts for them a year. You know, I think it was the year he came back from his Achilles, but he still wanted to play in Tokyo. And Drew Holiday was their second best player because Dame really couldn't make a shot in that tournament. And obviously Drew Holiday did it in, last year throughout the Celtics playoff run. Like, he just makes plays. It doesn't matter. He doesn't even need shots to impact winning. He was tremendous today. Just an absolute tank.
100%. And yeah, I fully expect, like, I would not be surprised at all if Boston comes in games 2 and like sets the record for most threes made in a playoff game.
Yeah.
I could very well see the Celtics just like absolutely dominating in game 2. If the Knicks happen to like make game 2 a competitive game as well, that's going to really sort of, give me even more dangerous hope than I have at the moment. Which I know I'm just setting myself up to be crushed. Like I'm already sort of putting my walls back up after that game because they were so down around halftime, and then they just broke me out of it where I was screaming and vigorously pacing in my apartment. But yeah, glad you brought up Drew Holiday because it's just such a cheat code for that team that they have him playing like their Deuce McBride role, except it's Drew fucking Holiday, who would be like,
yeah, just patrolling the baseline, filling in holes. I mean, he's not a similar player to Aaron Gordon, but he just feels emotionally like the Aaron Gordon of this team. In a big moment when it feels like their energy is slipping or their belief is slipping. Drew Holiday just like flies out of nowhere to secure a loose ball. I did notice on the Hack-a Mitch stuff that there were like 2 or 3 Mitch second free throw misses where the next Celtics offensive possession going the other way was like super discombobulated and stagnant. And listen, like we can't be rooting for Mitch to be bricking free throws, but an argument for hack a blank defense is you can also really get that your opposing offense out of whack and out of sync. And I felt like that backfired a little bit on Boston. There were moments when they'd be rolling, and you're just slowing things down. And And honestly, giving these guys a breather too, because Tibbs is going to play all his favorite players into the 40s every game of the series, and any way you can get anyone a mini timeout is a micro win for the Knicks. So I don't think the hack a Mitch is going to be an effective strategy long term. I just trust Mitch. I actually think there's just a certain fearlessness to Mitch. I never feel like he's missing free throws because it's a mental thing. Like I just
Yeah,
think he just really lacks any like
touch.
touch whatsoever. He has no bag. I mean, the bag is non-existent,
Yeah.
and that's okay because he's a 7 footer who moves really well and cares a fuck ton.
Yeah, he's as you say, he's one of the rare guys in that sort of just like athletic center build who's like a real time and time again playoff riser. Like
Every
most of
year.
those guys are like the same or a little bit worse in the playoffs because you can sort of exploit some of their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Rudy Gobert maybe being the most famous example on the offensive end, but Mitch
And
time
even
and
and
time
even that's overblown.
even that's overblown. But like a lot of guys are just kind of the same or a little bit worse in the playoffs. And Mitch time and time again, his defense seems to go up. His rebounding goes up, and his offensive impact with in terms of offensive rebounds and I mean he didn't really score tonight at all, but uh, that goes up too. So yeah, I have an immense level of trust in him. I was happy that Tibbs put him back in the game and wasn't like scared off by the hack of Mitch because he really does a lot for them defensively, especially like when they throw out like their all defense lineup of Deuce, the three wings, and Mitch. Like that's a pretty terrifying lineup defensively, which can really strangle the game for large portions. And they made a large portion of their run with that group in the game towards the end of the third quarter and into the beginning of the fourth. Before Brunson ultimately came back in to kind of put on the cape. And I think that's a look that I like a lot when they're resting their main guys. Usually, I don't like Cat and Brunson to be resting at the same time, but when they throw out that all defense group, that all dogs group, like that can really shut the water off, even for an elite team like Boston for extended stretches. So yeah, I thought the rotations from Tibbs, I mean, there wasn't that much rotating. Mikhail, as you said, played 51 minutes, but I thought the way he managed the different lineups that were out there was well done. And some of the scheming in terms of switching, which in the regular season they didn't do a lot of switching against the Celtics. So it's kind of like a new scheme that they put in just for this series. And yeah, I thought it was really impressive of a game one performance at least. And yeah, I thought coming into this game they had to win tonight or they had no chance in the series because beating this team 4 to 6 times just felt like a really tall mountain to climb. But now they've got one and they just got to go 3-3 in the next six. So we'll see if they can do it. But yeah, I can't believe what happened.
On the most basic level, the pressure is on Boston. It was on Boston coming into this series, and it's especially on Boston now. They won the title last year, and so there's less pressure on them if they get to the conference finals or the finals and they lose there. Like that happens. Repeating is really, really hard. And if they get a really good Cavs team or a really good Pacers team and they lose in that series, it'll be super disappointing just because windows close quickly and you just don't know how many chances you're going to get. But like this is the series that if they blow, it would look really bad. And there were some really like sort of what's the word, sclerotic Boston offensive possessions
I
today
looked that one up.
that felt a lot like 2023. That felt a lot like that Heat series when things just freeze up and the ball isn't moving and it comes down to Tatum shooting a step back three somewhere in the middle of the court. And you know what? Nobody gave the Knicks a chance in this series. It's a good place to be. The Celtics have a chance to be the laughing stock of this round, and if it's a gentleman's sweep and and Boston rattles off 4 wins now, like they did what they were supposed to do. And the Knicks are playing with house money. They're going to go back to MSG 1-1 at the very worst, and the house is going to be rocking.
Yes. All right. Do we want to quickly run through the predictions for all the second round series just to get them on the record?
Yeah, great. We did a half-hour pod. This is going to be way more than a half hour. Yeah, this is actually what I had down before today. I swear. Thunder in 6, respect to Jokic.
Yep.
Wolves over Warriors in 6, Celtics in 6, Cavs in 7.
Yeah. I agree with most of those. I had Cavs in 7. I had Cavs in 6 before their game 1, but like with the pod today, Cavs in 7 after they lost their game 1. Also, really weird. All the road teams won game 1 in the second round so far. Just like cool historical fact. I don't know if that's ever or when the last time that happened was, but I've got Cavs in 7. I had Celtics in 5 coming into this as a sort of self-loathing Knicks fan. Now I'm going to
Yep.
say 6 after we got this dub tonight. um, I was waffling between Thunder and 5 or 6, and I picked 5 before
Okay.
tonight's game.
So Thunder and 5.5. And then
Thunder, Thunder at 5.5, and then I've been going back and forth on this Warriors Wolves series. I've had a really tough time with it, and we're going to talk about it more as not today, but as it gets further into the series. And I'm going to pick Warriors in 7.
bang. The very first episode of this podcast, I think it was the first. It was one of the first. I think I said this episode is brought to you by something about Alperen Şengün's game. I used to be more creative and we used to have more fun intros before the honeymoon phase ended. I just want to say this was an Alperen Şengün pod from day one. And it was a really depressing end for Houston after they pushed it to 7. This Rockets core is here to stay. Ime is one of the best in the league, period. And I just think this Houston team is a prime candidate now to package a couple of their really important young pieces or really valuable young trade pieces to go get a legit all else fails scorer. There will be a disgruntled superstar who's on the market this summer. It might be Giannis. And I think that Houston has to move. I really do. I think Ime is too ready to carry a team in the playoffs as a tactician. And you just have so many pieces that can enhance a star's value. And so I keep hearing like, you can't trade a man to get Giannis. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm not even continuing the phone call if a man's not on the table because Giannis is in his prime. And obviously, like, if Houston felt like Giannis was going to re-sign, in 2 years, he's just so valuable that to say a man isn't on the table is ridiculous to me. You got to trade a great player to get a great player. But yeah, I'm super excited about this Houston team. I really think they're going to be in the mix for a while because they've got the picks and talent already kind of mature and installed, ready to go.
Yeah. One of my favorite pieces of round 1 was reminding myself just how much I love Steven Adams. Maybe my favorite role player of the last 10 years. Like Boris Diaw has my heart from the mid aughts to about 2015, culminating in that 2014 Spurs run. But I feel like just in terms of like niche NBA role players, not that he's necessarily so niche, but Steven Adams has just been so fun to watch and see him evolve over the course of his career from like physically and like appearance wise evolve from like the clean cut rookie who came into the league and like everyone wanted to punch or at least Zach Randolph really wanted to punch to the guy that he is now. I love watching the guy, and I'm happy that his career seems like it still has a ways ahead of him because he is deceptively young. And coming off the injury, when I saw him earlier this year, I thought he looked kind of cooked. But lesson to always give guys plenty of grace when they're coming back from injury because he very nearly won that series for the Rockets.
Yeah. The grizzled vet who sat in the bubble and said, I don't know what everyone's crying about. We're playing basketball in Disneyland. Nick Batum, another incredible vet revival. I thought when Batum went to Charlotte like 5 years ago that it was kind of over for him.
Yeah.
And here he is. I'm sad he isn't still on a team with a chance to make a run. He's unbelievable. Blazers legend. Speaking of all-time role guys, I think another Blazer, Wes Matthews is up there for me in the Boris Diaw, Nick Batum, Steven Adams bag of special vets. Also, I don't think Giannis with Amen and Şengün all on the floor is necessarily a spacing dream.
Don't think it works.
Amen is an incredible talent. But I've said this before the playoffs, like it's possible that he's the best athlete in the world and could win a Defensive Player of the Year award and is Russell Westbrook in transition, but that he isn't, a number 1 or 2 option just because the jump shooting looks so limited long-term. So I just think it's a little bit ridiculous when, we start hearing that he's completely untouchable. Like, no, it's not that he's completely untouchable. It's that he's a really, really valuable trade piece and he's good enough to get you an MVP candidate like Giannis if he's the blue chip centerpiece of your package. So
Yeah.
sorry, little Houston rambling. But yeah, we're gonna put this app up and keep watching what feels like the best Western playoffs of my life. And I said this when we were talking to Sean before the playoffs started. I mean, the West side of the bracket is just blockbuster after blockbuster, and I hope they all go 7.
Yeah. Feels like this round 2 is going to be generational, especially if the Knicks can get this to like a game 6, or God forbid, for my heart, a game 7.
Game 2 in Boston, must win.
Must win. Combined with the Cavs Indy series, which is just like offensive wet dream, and Thunder Nuggets, Minnesota Golden State, I think is going to be a great series. Like, got a lot of basketball watching ahead of us. I'm very excited.
Boris Dirk.